Kim's army has slightly changed its tactics in Kursk. It is again attacking on foot, but now it is trying to destroy the Ukrainian Armed Forces armored vehicles with the help of the Bucha 4 anti-tank guided missile. If earlier Kim's army attacked the positions of the Ukrainian Armed Forces in groups of 100 to 200 people, now these are platoon groups of 50 soldiers. Forbes reports a smaller number of attack aircraft will allow them to avoid rapid detection on the battlefield by Ukrainian drones. The 47th Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces in the Kursk region usually uses cluster munitions against enemy infantry. Each such munition scatters up to 88 submunitions the size of a grenade. After that, the Ukrainian forces finish off the enemy with high explosive fragmentation shells, which is why in December and early January, Kim's army lost many of its soldiers in Kursk region, both wounded and killed. The North Koreans spent several weeks in the rear, and since the beginning of this week, they have been spotted again on the front lines. It is not yet clear whether they have received reinforcements in the form of manpower, but they do have artillery and armored vehicles. Not long ago, there were shots from Pokrovsk on the internet, in which Ukrainian artillery carried out a targeted strike on a North Korean M1989 howitzer. And now, there are shots of a Bucha 4 anti-tank guided missile in the Kursk region. These ATGMs were first spotted on the front line back in August 2024. In December, the Ukrainian Armed Forces hit this system for the first time. OSINT analysts claim that the ATGM was spotted in Kazachya Lochnia. It is possible that this very system struck the Bradley of the 225th Assault Regiment of the Ukrainian Armed Forces when the Ukrainian forces were moving into combat positions. A video of the moment of the strike was posted online on the brigade's page yesterday. Meanwhile, analysts from ISW report that as of February the 20th, Putin's army continues to attack Ukrainian Armed Forces positions in the area of Lebedevka, Guevo, Kurilovka, and Pogrebki. ZWAR correspondents write that the occupiers from the 810th Brigade allegedly entered Basovka in Sumy region, and units of the 51st Airborne Regiment of the Russian Armed Forces advanced in the area of Sverdlikovo and Nikolaevo Daryino. The commander of a Ukrainian platoon operating in the Kursk region said on February the 20th that Russian troops were using significantly fewer vehicles and were conducting infantry attacks made up of inferior personnel and wounded troops.
The UK and Norwegian defence ministers expressed Thursday their continued support for Ukraine and announced plans to strengthen security cooperation during a visit to Norway's border with Russia. According to Associated Press, John Healey said the UK and Norway would step up further the support we give to Ukraine in order to keep them in the fight, at a joint press briefing with his Norwegian counterpart Tor Sandvik on board the Royal Navy's RFA Proteus. He stressed that Ukraine must enter any negotiations aimed at ending the conflict from a position of strength. Healey underlined that any such negotiations must involve Ukraine, amidst heightened concerns in Europe that US President Donald Trump is sidelining European nations, and Ukraine itself, in his efforts to bring an end to the three-year war. On Wednesday, Trump suggested Ukraine was to blame for starting the conflict and called Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky a dictator in a social media post. This war started because Russia invaded the territory of a sovereign state, Healey said. And this war could be ended today if President Putin withdrew his troops from Ukraine, he added. Healey and Sandvik also announced plans to strengthen the defense of undersea critical infrastructure they said was at risk of Russian sabotage. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is due to visit Trump in Washington next week for bilateral talks, including on Ukraine and European security.
We have met here today to announce that we are starting to work on a new ambitious defense agreement between our two countries. We commit to develop and strengthen our defense and security cooperation even further. We will also step up our commitment to work together to strengthen Euro-Atlantic security. In NATO, the Joint Expeditionary Force, the Northern Group, and other multilateral forums. It is also our shared intent to strengthen our cooperation on securing critical undersea infrastructure. Despite Russia's focus on its war in Ukraine, Russia continues to place great value on its capacities meant for undersea sabotage. Over many years, Russia has continued to fund and develop military capacities meant for undersea sabotage, targeting Western critical infrastructure on deep waters. The United Kingdom and Norway knows that Russia is willing to utilize all means at its disposal in order to undermine Western cohesion and support to Ukraine. And we are concerned that Russia's decision calculus for damaging Western undersea critical infrastructure may be changing. Any activities that damage seabed infrastructure, including undersea cables, especially during periods of heightened tensions, risk understandings and misperceptions that could lead to unintended escalation.
So we have today signed an agreement, a declaration that we will work now to forge a deep, ambitious new defence agreement, and we'll do that by the summer. That will cover the need both countries and others have to protect our critical underwater infrastructure. Work we're doing together here on Proteus, our UK ship, and Bison, your Norwegian ship, moored alongside. We will bring our militaries closer together, and we've spoken to our UK commandos and Royal Marines that are exercising with yours in the High North in Norway, not just exercising, but beginning now joint training for missions. And on Ukraine, we've said as two European nations that we will step up further the support we give to Ukraine. Ukraine is still fighting. We must keep them in the fight. We must try and keep them strong to secure that peace for the long term. And as two nations, Norway and Britain, we jointly lead the maritime coalition of a dozen nations that is supporting Ukraine, especially with maritime power, and helping them build up their own power for the future. So finally, this is the talk of Europe stepping up to support Ukraine, stepping up for European security. This is the talk of those European nations in action here, Norway and the UK together. Finally, one of the reasons that I wanted to join Tore here in Norway was also to remind people that we look at the Russian war in Ukraine, but Russia remains a threat beyond Ukraine, and Russia's aggression is not confined to Ukraine, and we have to meet that challenge and confront that together. This war started because Russia invaded the territory of a sovereign state. This war is continuing because the Ukrainians are fighting with great courage, military and civilians alike. And this war could be ended today if President Putin withdrew his troops from Ukraine. We all want to see an end to the fighting. We all want to see a durable peace. We all recognize that that peace must come through strength. President Trump has said that. President Zelenski has said that. And our special job as defense ministers is to continue to support Ukraine in the fight. We've been two European nations providing strong military help to Ukraine. We will continue to do that, and we will step that up, and part of our discussions have been today about how we do so. And we are ready in the UK also to play a part if we get to a point where the fighting stops and security guarantees are required for the long term, because the one feature of any ceasefire and any peace is that it must not be something that is broken again by Russia re-invading Ukraine. Well, first of all, there are no negotiations, there are just talks. Any negotiations about Ukraine have to be involved with Ukraine. And in many ways, we're jumping ahead of ourselves. Our Prime Minister has made the commitment that if we reach a ceasefire, we reach an end to the fighting, security guarantees will be needed, and Britain is ready to play a full part in that. And we're leading some of the detailed discussions about what may be needed, but I'm certainly not going to give you any detail that's going to make President Putin the wiser. Fundamentally, though, the war is still being fought. Russia is still bombing, firing on, launching drones, not just on Ukrainian troops, but on Ukrainian cities. The Ukrainians are still fighting, and our job is to support them in that fight, to keep them as strong as they can be when they come to the negotiating table. Support them on the battlefield, support them at the negotiating table when they choose to talk.